Hi everybody, Kat Mahoney here. Owner and Executive Director of the Geek Grid Studios and founder of the PA Steamfest. I'm so excited to share with you today a collaborative project that we've been working on for the past year with our partners and PA Steamfest sponsors, Verde Mantis 3D printers. We've been putting these 3D printers to the test. So we created the T60 armor set from the video game Fallout76. And without further ado, we're going to show you exactly how it's come together.
We met Kat about a year ago and started talking about how we could collaborate.
Collectively, we've got several hundred hours worth of work time and printing time and pulling it off.
I came in towards the tail end of the project, but I am so excited for you to see the final completion of the T60.
Whenever you're doing a cosplay, you'll notice that you're never going to find the right thing for your cosplay. That's where 3D printing comes in. You can make the 3D model for what your cosplay needs and then print it out on a printer.
I think it really gives cosplayers an opportunity to chase their creative passion, and I am proud to work on a product that gives people the opportunity to do that. That creativity is really what drew me to 3D printing in the first place.
Very excited for Steamfest and see what you guys all do with the T60 project.
What an amazing collaboration between two awesome companies that can bring all of the elements of geek education, cosplay, and STEAM education, creativity together.
Oh my god, you guys have cool props too?
Yeah, you want to try Thor's hand? You want to hold it?
Do I want to hold Thor's hand? Yes! Wait, do you guys need this back? Like forever hold on to it? Perfect, perfect. And we are going to welcome Kat. She's on her way here. Awesome. You good. And here she comes, our fearless leader, Kat Mahoney, wearing the fruits of this project. That's awesome. Let's give it up for Kat Mahoney, everybody. It makes you look a lot bigger.
I suggested the stilts, but you guys wouldn't want me to.
I mean, you already seem to be tripping on the way down, so
Yeah.
don't think stilts would help. Trips would happen.
So tell us how you guys did this.
Yeah, I guess I'll kick things off. So, in the very beginning, I met Kat, and learned about the Steamfest, what they were all about. And I got shown, I think it was maybe Rob showed me, or it might have been Kat, the video of the T60 armor. And we talked about, hey, is this actually 3D printable? Can this actually be 3D printed? And we started looking into it, and we found somebody who actually had already created all the 3D printable models for the armor itself. And the beautiful thing about 3D printing is we quickly realized that we could actually scale that armor, which I think the real armor is probably 6+ feet tall. We actually scale that down to fit perfectly for Kat and then print those pieces perfectly for her. So that's really kind of the origin and the genesis for it. And since then I can have Rob and Mandy talk about kind of how we went about the project and answer some of your questions as well. We'd love to have this to be interactive where you can learn about not only the technology but the process too to actually pull something like this off.
So I guess I'll start first, and then I'll let Rob finish. So just exactly what Joe said is we met Kat and her team, and just our whole mission, our missions are very similar as far as, engineering, technology, makers, and we had never really entered into that cosplay category, but we quickly realized that there was a perfect match. So when we got the files, we decided we were going to have to try this because we had never attempted this before. And one of our team members, Andrew, and Stevie took about over 158 pictures of Kat. We wanted to create her into a 3D model. We used 100 of those images to create her image, her STL file of herself. And then they were able to resize those files that we were lucky enough to get from someone who had already created them, and have them size them to Kat. But after we got those files, we weren't sure, we had to have a backup plan in case it didn't work. So you could see in the video, hold that, we had a lot of fun. Rob and Kat especially got up close and personal, creating these duct tape kind of casts of Kat. So we met over a weekend and put some plastic baggies on Kat's arms, legs, you can see her, and then duct taped her. So we had to get very close and personal with her at some moments because it's a full suit. And we figured that way when we had the part 3D printed, since we're not, next door neighbors to Kat, that we would be able to then just kind of do it as a fitting. This is her, and we have it labeled, maybe her leg, and it kind of just gave us an idea. They're kind of pushed, but you could then get that fit. It gave us just an idea of how it would fit her. So that was really the first kind of what we started with.
And real quick, just to reiterate that point, Mandy, because that's an excellent point. To kind of give a more detailed, sorry, you're going to hold the helmet too. To give you a more detailed kind of idea of really what went into this is we took an artist somewhere in the world, I think he was actually outside the United States, Sweden, based in Sweden. He played the video game, and he was so excited about the video game that he created a 3D model of the armor in the game. And at that point in time, it was just digital files somebody had spent tens or 20, hundreds of hours building because they loved the armor they saw in the game and they wanted a digital representation of it for themselves. We were able to actually take that and then take Kat, create a digital model of her, compare it against this other model of this armor, see how much bigger it was piece by piece than her, and then we scaled the digital model down, every single component, so that it would fit perfectly for Kat. I mean, a good analogy to that is, imagine the ability to take a bunch of pictures of your feet, create a 3D model of your foot, and then print a shoe that fits perfectly for your individual foot, instead of having to go and try on a bunch of shoes. So that same analogy applies exactly here. It's just not as many people probably will build themselves a set of armor rather than buy shoes. And what Mandy was talking about with the duct tape is by basically creating a duct tape cast of her individual arms and legs, torso, we were able to then print the digital files, bring them into the real world with our technology on our printers, and then test whether or not they fit her without having to physically try on every single piece, and have her on site for weeks or months to do that. So I'll let you continue, but that's an awesome point. And for me personally, I'd never been through this process, and it was exciting to actually see it all unfold.
So then kind of our next step is when we had those files, we actually printed 55 separate pieces. So if you look at this piece in particular, that was actually 3 pieces that we 3D printed. And then we had to glue them and attach them. So that ended up to be 18 pieces. So when you look at the T60 armor, it's from 55 separate to 18 combined pieces. The longest print time for a piece was about 32 hours. So that was how long one of them. Luckily for us, we do have a fleet of 12 printers in our office, which you saw in the promo video. So we had that capacity that we could run multiple printers to make this project go a little bit faster. The shortest individual print time was 7 hours. So again, that print time is going to vary. The size, the different kind of, if it's more complicated, if it needed more or less supports, because this, is not an easy project. I would say it's not a beginner level. It was something that our team, like Kat said in the video, put our team and our product to the test. So, that print time, it did take that amount of time.
And for anyone that hasn't 3D printed, or actually, can I see a show of hands? How many people have used a 3D printer before? See a couple, maybe 10. There we go. I see Wes in the corner there. A normal 3D print, and you guys, can yell if I'm wrong, it takes a significant amount of time. The process isn't fast. You're not going to get a 3D, you're not going to 3D print a helmet in minutes. It's going to take hours, and that's normal. But the beauty behind it, whereas, instead of having to hand carve an entire armor set out of foam, imagine the man hours required to do that. Instead, you could just press a button on an automated machine that then just spends hours making something for you while you go and do something else in your life, and you don't have to spend the time actually hand molding it and crafting it yourself.
Yeah, and that's a great point. We can launch that print, go home for the night or the weekend, and come back on Monday morning or the next morning, and the print would be there. So that, with our printer, we're located on the 3rd floor. Check us out. But that was really nice. So in all, we took about 495 hours to print her suit. And so it was a commitment. But I think one of the biggest rewards is seeing those successful prints. And we did have to add some supports to it to print those parts. So if those of you who are familiar with 3D printing, because of the overhangs or the angles of the part, you have to add supports. We tend to use tree supports. We found that those were the easiest to clean and maintain. And those, I don't know, Joe, can you explain better what tree supports are?
I don't want to dive into a super technical 3D printer talk here, but basically, if you can't print something in thin air, you can't tell your printer, hey, I just want you to, print set of arms or something like that in thin air. It actually has to build that product from the ground up. So it starts with printing one little layer. And again, if you're interested in seeing how a 3D printer works, we have our printers running upstairs on the 3rd floor. You can actually try them out yourself. But it starts printing it layer by layer, and you can't just get, you can't start at layer 900th without doing layer 1 first. So the tree supports kind of look like trees. They grow up, and then they support those final layers, and so you can just break those off and then assemble the armor. Again, supports is kind of a technical part of 3D printing, so I'm not going to dive a whole lot further into that, but it was just one unique aspect of pushing the technology to the limits to see what we could create with it.
So obviously the next, I think, question that some of you might have, and we'll take some questions after Rob talks, that is the filament. So we use primarily, exclusively PLA, which is a plastic. Like Joe said, if you're not familiar with 3D printing, it is kind of like using a hot glue gun. So the plastic goes through the tubing into the hot end and then extrudes layer by layer like that. So a spool of filament can range between $20 and $30 depending on what you're using. We took it used about 8 rolls of filament, and so that cost us about $176. So when you think of that cost, it was a lot of man hours to prepare those files and do it, but material cost, it's pretty shocking that it only cost us that much in the filament. So filament is affordable, and you can tell, like Kat, if she'd have a metal suit, she would not be walking. So the PLA is a plastic, so it's very lightweight, and it's really easy to work with in that finishing.
Yeah, and we'll have Rob, who's our expert painter and finisher here, talk about kind of how you can take something that's just right off the printer and you can paint it and create, you know, whatever finish you want on it. But as Manny was iterating too, especially for costumes and cosplay, you want something that's lightweight. You don't want to be carrying around a set of armor all day long that weighs 50 pounds, or at least I don't think Kat would. No. So, you know, you want to create parts that are actually hollow on the inside, and that's what we did. So a lot of her parts actually are really only about 20% solid, and the rest of the inside is actually hollow. So it's very lightweight, and that way she can lug it around all day, no problem. So Rob, off the 3D printer, how would you go about actually taking that leg piece, which is located right there on our left-hand side, how would you make it look like that?
All right, so I'm part of the Verde Mantis team. I am also a commission painter. I normally commission small models if you would use them in like tabletop games. But this was a big challenge for me to do because this is a lot bigger than a 25mm model. But once this comes off of the 3D printer, you can see the difference in color alongside the legs. They actually print like that, and then you have to glue them together. So these would be printed in 3 separate pieces. I take the process of putting this together, gluing it together, and then normally when you paint something, you need to prime it first so that the paint attaches to the plastic. If it does not attach, or if you do not prime it, the plastic will actually rub off occasionally, which is not good, especially during the process of painting it. So after this goes, I prime it, I paint it, and this isn't just a rattle can that you go and take it to. You actually have to do the paints. All the silver was done with paint, and then I had an oil wash to make it look worn and disheveled, because you're not going to find a fully pristine set of power armor in the middle of a wasteland. Are you sure? Am I sure? No, yes, I am actually very sure that you're not going to be finding a pristine set of power armor 200 years after they're made. But the process after getting that silver to look right was to add bits of rust, which you can see all along the armor. And the paint for the New California Republic on there, which Kat specifically asked me not to do it, but I finished playing Fallout New Vegas run of NCR, and I just had to. I couldn't stop myself. So this, and it also fits with the theme because the NCR doesn't actually use the frames that are required to actually make the power armor work. So it actually looks a lot better as a New California Republic soldier would equip those.
Nice job, Rob. Yeah, no, Rob did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
You can also find me upstairs on the 3rd floor next to our glorious Mantis 3D printers.
Nice plug, Rob. Nice plug. He was paid to say that.
I do my job. I do it well.
Yes, he does. But yeah, no, Rob did a fantastic job. I mean, especially on the rust side of things. You guys will obviously get the chance throughout the day. And will you be wearing it tomorrow as well?
I will.
So you'll get the chance throughout today and tomorrow to actually check out the armor in person yourself. But the thing too is Rob did use specialized paint to actually have the rust and things like that on this armor, but on other parts you can print off the Mantis. You can actually simply just go to Lowe's and buy a can of spray paint. We have some examples upstairs on the 3rd floor of doing simple metallic pieces where you just spray paint it, and you can make it whatever color you like. But this is the T60 armor in all of its glory. You know, it came out phenomenal in my opinion. I think it's awesome. Kat, do you want to?
Yeah, you know, I'm good with the microphone. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Okay. All right. So, really, this whole project was an extraordinary project, and I think it took a great deal of both companies to come together and really see how far we could challenge our creativity. And that's what STEAMFest really is about being able to challenge your mind as far as science, technology, engineering, art, math, makers, and really put something together that you feel you felt that you couldn't do before. And it really is a great accomplishment when you do succeed at something. And I have to really hand it off to CJ Mahoney as well, because obviously with cosplay, if you are a cosplayer, you know that everything, obviously we're not going to use all 3D printing, we're not going to use all fabrics, we're not going to use, and we mix and match things together. The 3D printing really made it much easier for us to look at something and say, I would like to do this on a scale, and we did that. Then you take those parts and you put them together and you add little accessories and little parts to it. So really it took a whole team, both of our teams, as far as the engineering and the technology portion and the creativity and all the science behind it, knowing what glues, what paints and things like that to use as well. So if you have a project that you're really interested in doing, the one thing I would highly recommend, and which I came to Mantis about, was saying, do it. It doesn't matter how big it is or how small it is, or if you feel you're going to mess up on it. Everybody has a starting point. And that's exactly what we did as a team, was say, we want to do this. If it doesn't turn out exactly how we had planned, then it'll turn out better, because everything comes together. And I think I have to applaud you guys for taking that challenge when I approached you and said, okay, I think those printers are great, but what can you really do? And being able to take that challenge and go with it. And I thank everybody else who is on my team who took the time to put it together, and CJ for his engineering and really making it shine. As you notice, when we got it, we had the little holes in the back.
That's exactly what they say, is turn around the
Yep.
back. When she got it, it didn't have the canisters or the tubing, so like she said, her husband CJ did a great job putting those final touches on it and making it, for Kat. And yeah, it's awesome. I think, like you said, it really allowed both teams to use that creativity and innovation, and we had the stumbling blocks. It was not a perfect process. I can't tell you how many times if we had a bleeper, we would be bleeping Rob all the time. It took him 100 hours of painting time, but it was such a team effort, and I think that is really that meaning behind our two companies, is that you have to try it and go beyond what your comfort zone to really challenge yourself. And we challenged our product, and I mean, this is awesome. And guys, and the ending, that like when we gave it to them and how it fits Kat, and it's so impressive. And I think you guys finished it like we definitely knocked it out of the ballpark. I think both teams collaboratively.
Our engineering team did a great job with the sizing. Actually, I thought we were going to have to do like 2 or 3 prints before it would actually fit. First time's a charm, I guess.
Yeah. But it's a, really just take that challenge and go with it. You'll be amazed. I'm glad that we did this. And I kind of open up to the floor if anybody has any questions for you guys.
How many failed prints did you guys have?
Good question.
Good question.
Were we supposed to keep track? Yeah, no, there were definitely quite a few. Actually, midway through building the T60 armor, it's from anybody who's used 3D printers before, failures are a big part of the learning curve. We've done our best to produce a product that's easy to use, but we push the bounds of technology, as Kat said. I would say we probably had maybe 3 rolls worth of failures of the, of the 8 rolls. So maybe $45 or $50 worth of material lost to failures. But actually, midway through the project, we connected and partnered with a company called the Spaghetti Detective. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar in the room who has a 3D printer, but we're actually now the first 3D printer, and we use this to our advantage, first 3D printer in the world to ship our printer with that already built in. And what that means is if the printer self-detects errors. So if anything would go wrong with any of the T60 parts, the printer itself would actually stop the print and text one of our team members and tell them that something's wrong with the part that went bad. And so we were actually able then to save ourselves a tremendous amount of material and time, not coming in to Monday after the weekend and seeing that there were a bunch of failures. Instead, we already knew that, hey, the printers were stopped and it's done. But
there were definitely failures. It's
Yeah.
not a, just like anything in life, if you're gonna push through it, there's gonna be blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, and I think it was like the first, I'd say like maybe like 5 attempts were not successful, and that's where we decided we had to start adding supports and looking at how we were the different making them more parts than what we had thought. But yeah, this kind of being able to monitor it when we weren't in the office was a huge help, because like Joe said, we didn't always have to come into spaghetti on our beds and like disappointed. But
yeah, even currently at home right now, like I'm printing a katana on my Mantis that's in my kitchen right now, and I can watch it from an app on my cell phone and see that everything's going well. So we use something called Slack to communicate in our office. It's kind of just like a messaging system, and our programmer Dave, he's not here today. He's actually singing at a wedding. He would Slack message like our failed attempts that it was coming up, and so he really kept an eye on it. He was definitely the maintainer of our fleet and the monitor of our printers. So randomly on weekends, in that beginning, especially in the beginning, we'd be like, oh, he's like, don't worry, I canceled it. We're like, oh man. But it was exciting. It was exhilarating. Even the failures were exciting.
Yeah, we were like, oh, we feel big. But like that was a good one.
Yeah. But great question.
What's a complete suit weigh?
That's a good question.
So if you were to put it together just with the 3D parts, very, very light. However, we had to add, if you notice on the back, we had added the wheel. It's actually a fire hydrant wheel. Because we couldn't actually get the part for just through foam. So we wanted to be more realistic. So the heaviest thing on me right now is that fire hydrant wheel. And we put a block inside the middle of it. You see there? There's a block in the middle of it that we screwed in just to kind of hold it in place. But that's probably the heaviest amount. I don't know how much the 3D itself, the armor itself, it was not heavy.
Yeah, I would probably say the armor probably weighs maybe like 16 or 17 pounds based off of our material usage on the successful parts at the end. But yeah, that fire hydrant piece probably weighs 10 pounds.
10 pounds. And then of course the back of the backpack portion, we have a little piece of foam in between, so it keeps, because of the printer, like you had mentioned, it's hollow inside. So we don't want it to scratch my back, so we put foam all inside there, so it's a little softer. And that really is pretty much the only thing that we've kind of used was just foam and then the wheel. So everything else is pretty light. Like I can walk in it. The only thing is with it is because, and if you played Fallout or anything like that, or any armor pieces, you're walking like this, right? So, it does get to the point where you're like, I do feel like I'm like a mech warrior here, it's pretty cool, but it's very, very light, yeah.
I saw another question, I think, in the middle.
What specifically to her, how do you breathe in that?
Good question.
I mean, it's got to be after a while.
Yeah. Yes.
Difficulty.
And the one thing I always hear from cosplayers is cosplay is not it can be painful sometimes. I mean, a lot of people walk around going, oh my feet, oh my my head, I can't breathe in this thing. So what we did with the helmet, we didn't at this time because we were on kind of a time crunch. But we would end up putting a fan in there, or we would end up putting like a backpack on my back that had a water bottle attached to it with a tube that would go through, so I can be hydrated.
Yeah.
So that helps a lot too. Of course, we didn't have the time to do that on this one, so I don't keep the helmet on long at all.
My other question was, obviously, you're presenting this steampunk event. Is this something that you're looking to? Okay. Somebody could come to you with an idea and you can create.
So in terms of just, and I'm Joe, the founder, started the company in 2018, but in terms of the business model, we do some prototyping, some designing and model creation, but our goal at the end of the day is to we want to share 3D printing technology with as many people as we possibly can. And in order to do that, we believe we've created the easiest 3D printer in the world. So we're really focused on actually selling the printers. However, what we've learned is a big part of the printer sales is, people want to design something cool that they then want to print on our printer. So what we'll do is, with a printer sale, I'll basically work with them one-on-one to help them design a new project that they want to work on. And that just comes basically pro bono with the printer sale, because it shows them the unique application to their particular niche or whatever it may be. Yeah, so.
My husband's into it a little bit, but my daughter's into cosplay and ski.
Okay.
And sometimes she comes up with ideas, but then how do you put it in?
That's a great question. And a big part of it too is Mandy's actually, she has 20 years in the STEM education field as a teacher, which is also a big reason why we hired her. Education is huge for us. I know some of the folks right here are familiar with 3D printers. I mean, how many hours of learning did it take you to figure out how to use your printer? Right? Way too many hours. And that's why we focus on dropping that learning curve. But on top of that, on just preparing print files, we've gone a step farther, and we've actually created, thanks to Katrina, who's up there, and Stevie and Andrew, we've created videos that show people on YouTube how to actually create their own models. So we've created a series of tutorials where you can download a 3D program, and our team actually walks you through how to design things that you can then print yourself. And that way it kind of helps you unleash your creativity. That's really something that we've been after. And for your daughter in particular, she could go on our YouTube for free, learn how to use these free softwares to create her own models and then print them with ease on our printer. So that's our vision of the future, and how we've worked with the folks out in the world to show them, hey, you can learn this stuff, basically from your iPhone with ease.
Yeah, and I think that's, with us we're located in Pennsylvania, East Stroudsburg and Reading, so, but being new to 3D printing, but being able that creativity of creating your own props for cosplay and steampunk, we, like Joe said, we are, one of the things that we kind of really promote is that we can offer you great customer service. So if you're designing something and something doesn't fit, keeps failing or it's not working, oftentimes we'll send us the file. We'll try to print it in our office, or have our guy, our design team take a look at it, and we can help you out with that. Obviously we can't, spend hundreds of hours doing it, but we can really offer that support with it. And 3D printing can be used in more than cosplay and steampunk. I mean, in education, if you're a parent or grandparent, it's amazing what you can do. Definitely come talk to us on the 3rd floor. Gamers, there's just so many applications that you can use it for, and even like painting and finishing it that you don't even know it's plastic. We have someone, a flap on their pool broke and they couldn't find the part anymore, so they could 3D print it. And you're gonna find yourself looking around your house going, okay, what can I 3D print? There's my knots for my drawer, and my chip clip because I don't have one, or my earrings, by the way, are 3D printed. It's so much fun, and you kind of get addicted to it. You're just always oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? And I think that with our team, every day, Katrina, we're like, what are you gonna print today? Social media, we're like, okay, what can we do? And so if you haven't tried 3D printing, I would, encourage you to do it. We can help you with our printer, but locally, if your school has one, I would definitely encourage the kids to find out if your school has one and try it, or if you have a makerspace or a library, and get yourself into it, because it is so much fun, and it can be a great hobby. And I was talking to some people, it can also be a nice side hustle. If you're looking to invest, we're doing a giveaway this weekend. We 3D printed the Mandalorian helmet. They're totally 3D printed. We finished it with some spray paint. We bought a plastic shield for it. If you look online at Etsy, you're like, whoa, it did not cost us that much. So it's just so much fun, and you know, we all come from different backgrounds. I was a teacher, I'm a parent, so I have that kind of mindset. You know, Rob is gaming, and he does the small print, you know, printing, painting, so you know, he's in that. Joe's an engineer, so he's always thinking of like practical, you know, uses for it. So it's just so much fun, and I would just definitely say, like, get into it. You know, we're going to be helping Kat and her team with a printer to get into it, and looking at how they, you know, how you can really go beyond, and what you can really do with it for the cosplay and your steampunk. It's so much fun.
Yeah, and I saw another question, I think this gentleman right here.
Well, one question's been answered, but I thought of a different one.
Okay. All right.
It may not be like, it's like not you, but sort of like, if say those earrings, say you wanted a plastic that closes the door, do they make that yet?
Yes.
Also,
Yep.
also, let's say you want to have the bottom there be a little bit flexible. Can you mold those or stiffer plastic and also something basically a rubber type compound? You can make it combine, even if you have to glue them together, or you may be able to somehow that interface so it doesn't come in glue.
Do you want to be our spokesperson? The answer is yes. Yeah, you can actually print on our printer like rubberized materials. We printed a rubber ducky, which I thought was like the most amazing thing in the world, on our printer, and it came in and they handed me a rubber duck that, like, you know, was squishy and squeak, and I was like, this is amazing.
I mean, you have to be like a Olympic athlete. You should be able to 3D print your shoe that would fit the person and both statically and running water.
Exactly. I mean, I even saw, personally, my 3D printing journey actually started, I saw a YouTube clip probably like 12 years ago now, of a father and his son had lost his hand in some tragic accident, and the father, who was an engineer at the time, actually basically made a replica of the other hand, mirrored the image, and then printed it, and then figured out a way to actually like make the fingers articulate and attach it to his, you know, son that now had lost his hand. I mean, for me, that was like a big, like, kind of, you know, gut wrenching, but at the same time, like, oh my God, this technology can allow people, you know, to make something completely custom to them. So excellent point. Other questions? Hold on, sorry, the light's a little bright.
What do you use for glue on the
So I specifically use super glue. Any kind of super glue will normally adhere to PLA.
Are we talking like Gorilla Glue brand or?
Gorilla Glue, not so much. Loctite is a good one that I use.
Red Loctite, blue Loctite.
Either or.
Does that help?
I'm a spokesperson for Mantis 3D printer, not for Loctite.
I purchased the Loctite for it, yes. We tried different things. We tried epoxy, we tried Loctite, we tried Gorilla Glue, and Rob liked the Loctite, so that's what we used.
It will probably depend on the material you're printing, of course. You know, yeah. But for us, and we use Overture filament. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that brand, but that's who we used. We're actually partnered with them, so they helped us get good pricing on the materials, things like that. I saw a couple. There we go.
Do you guys have your own proprietary 3D modeling software?
So, great question. We actually don't have, our printer is patented. The software, though, to actually create models, we are out of that space, and that's why we've created, like the company Autodesk, who makes Fusion 360. That's a very popular one. They make Tinkercad as well. It's another very popular one. There's the company SolidWorks, which I particularly prefer and use. We let those companies focus on the actual modeling software itself, but once you have a file that's exported from those softwares, our printer will actually, it runs Octoprint under the hood. I don't know how much 3D printing experience you have, but you're familiar with Octoprint. It runs Octoprint under the hood, but we actually have a kind of proprietary top layer. You can get access to Octoprint and do everything you would normally do, whether it's Cure or whatever, as an advanced user. But you can, on our proprietary interface, there's actually a search bar just to search models, and you can just type something in, click print, and the printer will orient it, repair it, slice it, heat up the print bed, start printing it, auto level the bed, without you having to know or do anything. So we're trying to forge the Mantis into the stepping stone for somebody's journey into 3D printing, from knowing nothing to getting full control of all the under the hood bells and whistles, and then introducing them to 3D modeling softwares as well, to your point. maybe in the future, but I doubt it. I'll leave it to the tech giants to do that. Additional questions?
So I can see the unfinished 3D printed part there.
Rob, you mind walking them down a little?
So it looks like it has the green, so it has a grainy finish on the surface. Did you have to take special measures to smooth that out, or is there just some sort of primer that fills in the gaps?
So there is primer that you can use. For Cat's model specifically, I did a lot of sanding. A lot of sanding. It was not fun. But yeah, there is filler primer, which is used in the Mandalorian helmet that we did here. I wanted to make sure that it looked the way I wanted it to look. So primer can often like bubble. It can often fall down the model and create a kind of teardrop look. So sanding oftentimes will get you a better result than filler primer. Do I have anything else to add to that? No.
Did that help answer your question? Yeah. But the Mandalorian helmet that we're giving away this weekend, I don't see any of the classic layer lines that you normally see on a print. You know, to me it appears completely smooth. Rob did an excellent job on it. But there's a multitude of ways to eliminate the layer lines. Even if you use a different material like ABS plastic, which you could print on a printer as well, you can actually use acetone. There's a process just to basically use acetone to smooth the surface. And acetone you can get at any Lowe's or hardware store. It'll actually make the part almost look injection molded if you're familiar with that process.
We actually liked the way it turned out without actually filling in the primer or anything like that, because in the game itself, and obviously if you're familiar with the T60, it's roughed up. You know, it really is more on the lines of it gets dirty. It's supposed to be, you know, damaged a little bit, and we didn't want it to look something that was so shiny and so new. So Rob had the perfect idea of just keeping it, you know, the way it was. And the insides of it, as we were putting some of it on, we did have to sand a little bit down because, you know, it can get a little bit rough on the inside. But really the sanding was the only thing that was the toughest part about, you know, making sure it's smoother. But we didn't want it to shine or anything like that.
200 years in the desert, right?
Any other questions? Awesome. Well, please stop by their Verdi Mantis booth on the 3rd floor, and then on the 2nd floor, the Geek Grid Studios is there. We have a post-apocalyptic set. Would love to be able to get photos with anybody if you're interested. And just thank you guys. It's been such a fun year, and it really got my brain going, and you know, really stimulated a lot of intellectual conversations, which was a great thing, and kept us going. So if you guys have any projects, really share them with us, and head over to Verdi Mantis.
Thank you, Kat and your team again, and thanks for having us.